Hello everyone, it's Jamie and welcome back to my channel and welcome to another cross-stitching update. I have a week's worth of cross-stitching to show, I have a small amount of knitting to show, I have one purchase, which that will be very quick to talk about, and then I also am going to talk about gridding at the end of this video because I love gridded fabric and I had a question about gridding in my last video, so gridding will be at the end of the video. So if you don't want to see that, you don't have to stay to watch it, but if you are curious about gridding, then I will have that at the end. So to start off with, what have I worked on for my cross-stitch progress? My daily project is Autumn Harmony, which is artwork by Maxine Gadd, charted by Maxine Gadd, and I am trying to do like 200-ish stitches a day. Sometimes it's less, sometimes it's more, and then my goal is that every month I will end up doing 5,000 stitches so that this year I can do a total of 60,000 stitches on her and then hopefully get her finished next year. So that's what I'm doing on Autumn Harmony, and here is where she is right now. I have been working on filling in the color 154 and I'm stitching it kind of like extreme cross country-ish. I go back and forth, so this month I am just focusing on that one color. I think I still have to do another 1,600 stitches of this color to get the color finished, but I think I only have to do 800 more stitches this month and then I am done technically, but I think I might do more stitching on her just to get that color finished. And then I'm getting really close to the bottom part of this chart with this color. So I've already finished the color 154 throughout the rest of the chart, and the only part that's left is this bottom corner to finish with that color. So I'm getting very close to being done with that color, and so I'm really looking forward to that. This is being stitched on 18 count fabric, 2/1 full cross, and yeah, I'm loving it so far. It's very fun to stitch. And then if we work our way from my last video was filmed on Thursday, today is currently Friday, so what did I work on right after my last video? I was working on Little Gamer, which is artwork from Medusa Dollmaker, charted by Gecko Rouge. It's no longer available from Gecko Rouge, but you can find the chart on Folktales Market is I think the website, and I will have it linked down below. And my goal for this one is to do 2,500 stitches on it every month, and I think I needed to do another like 1,400 stitches or something to meet my goal for this month, and I did. So here is where I am on it right now, and I will have inserted on the side what it looked like the last time you saw it, because I don't even remember exactly where I worked on this. I think I was working on the little Sonic, getting the hedgehog filled in, and then I also worked a little bit on the ring that is in his hand. So I think that's what I worked on, and I don't think I really worked anywhere else since the last time. So I am just jumping in here because I realized that I forgot to mention something about Little Gamer while I was talking about it. I was like, oh, I don't remember where I stitched, and I completely forgot that there was an area that I stitched on. And so what happened is I was working on this chart Thursday and Friday, which were days that I was watching Bridgerton season 3 part 1, and like I was like obsessed with it. I was just stitching away, and then I reached my goal for the month. So I had reached my 2,500 stitches, but I didn't want to switch projects because I was in like the middle of an episode. I wasn't going to pause the episode to get a different project, and I also wanted to be stitching on something that I didn't have to think a ton about. So what I ended up doing is I ended up starting to stitch on some of the background in Little Gamer, because Little Gamer has like 20,000 stitches of this light blue background, and so I think what I might start trying to do is every month I want to do 2,500 stitches on this chart, but I want it to be on like the main focus of the chart. I want it to be on the actual like thing. So I want it to be on like Mario and like Link and like on the actual people. And then if I reach my goal of the 2,500 stitches in those other colors, then if I have extra time, I might start stitching in some of this blue background and just start seeing what I can get done on it this year. And so that's what I did. I was watching Bridgerton and I was like, I don't want to switch, so I will just start stitching a little bit of this blue background. And the way that I would like to stitch it is I really want to get like the outside of the chart outlined, which is what I started trying to do. Is I just took the blue up to the top, so this is the top corner of the chart, and then just start working my way around the outline. And then I want to get these people all finished, the stitching on it this year, hopefully. And then that way next year I would just be filling in the blue. So I would have the outline all done, I would have all the people done and all that stuff. And then I wouldn't have to count when I am filling in all the 20,000 stitches of this blue color. So that's what my plan is for this chart, I think, going forward. And yeah, I'm just excited now though to see Bridgerton season 3 part 2. The first part ended at like a spot where you're just like, what? How you cannot end there, and they did. And so I'm not gonna spoil it, even though I feel like it's all over social media what was happening, but I know, you know, not everyone might have watched it, so I will just leave it at that. But it's this season has really made me want to read the other books, because I have only listened to the books up to I listened to book 4, because that was the season that we're on right now, is technically book 4. And I have not went anywhere past that. So I don't know what happens with Eloise. I don't know what happens with Francesca or anything like that. And so it makes me really want to know what happens with them, because now Francesca is like more in the show. She's out in society. And so yeah, now I really want to get those books and listen to those books. That is all that I wanted to add though. It's just that I started working a little bit on the background, and now I will let you go back to the regular part of the video, and I need to get back to editing it all together. This is being stitched on a 25 count 2/1 tent stitch, which is just a half cross. But tent stitch can kind of mean different things. So there's half cross, there is basket weave, and then there is a different one. I can't remember the third one, but there is technically different ways you can do it. I technically just do usually a half cross, because I don't generally want to think that much about which way my stitches are going. But anyways, that takes me to the weekend. Every weekend in May, I am working on a Whip Go piece, because there was 3 Whip Go numbers called, and then the last weekend in May will be, if I don't meet any of my Whip Go goals for the weekend, then they will be worked on at the end of May in that last weekend. And my goal for each Whip Go piece is to do 1,000 stitches. So the piece that I was supposed to work on last weekend is Fables. It is another Medusa Dollmaker chart that was charted from Gecko Rouge, which is now on Folktales Market website. And here is where I got to on Fables. So I did my 1,000 stitches, and I kind of started stitching this one different than I had been. Previously, I had been kind of just stitching like I was stitching cross country previously, and I was just kind of going wherever I wanted to. But because a lot of the colors in this chart are so light, I was having trouble when I needed to go back and fill in spaces. So I started kind of actually completing blocks and then parking, which I don't normally stitch block by block and park, but it's working out better, because then I'm not left with spaces that I need to go and fill in with light colors later, because it was hard to see where I needed to fill in those spaces. And it's also just fun seeing how it's showing up now. I feel like you're able to see more of what's going on. You can see like the little swirlies behind the owl, so that's fun. And yeah, I ended up doing 1,400 stitches on this chart in one day. Like, I pulled it out and I was obsessed with this chart. It's really fun to stitch on. It only uses 30 colors, so like there's lots of color changes. You can see that there are lots of parked threads, but there's only 30 colors that can technically be used, so it's fun. It's nice, it's relaxing. And this is on, I think it's on a 25 count 2/1 tent stitch. And like I said, I loved this one. And then I did the 1,400 stitches, and I almost wanted to keep working on it. And then I was like, no, you reached the goal. You need to put it away so you can go back to working on some of your other stuff. And so then I ended up pulling out my Northern Lights chart, which is from Climbing Goat Design on Etsy. And I did like 100 stitches on that over the weekend. So it's not a ton of progress, but it's a small amount, because I do want to kind of pull this one out whenever I can and try and maybe get it done this year. I think the total chart is like 7,000 stitches, so there is quite a bit of stitching that needs to be done on it. But like, it would be nice to have this done, because I would like to finish it in the year, you know, that I saw the Northern Lights. So I would like to try and squeeze this one in more. And I do not know what count this fabric is. I could technically just measure it, but this was one of the pieces of fabric that came in my Christmas mystery box from thesewingshop.ca. Not really sure what the fabric count is. I just decided to do 2/1 full cross, and it's not too thick, so I'm assuming that it must be like a 16 or 18 count. If it was a 20 count, it would be very thick, so I don't think it's 20 count, but yeah. So there is my small, tiny little progress on this chart. And I was also going to mention that Climbing Goat Design actually released more Northern Lights charts right after I posted about this, I think. So it was like the same day or the next day they posted on Instagram that they had released a couple more Northern Lights charts. And one of them is really fun because it comes as just like the Northern Lights chart, but then there's also an option where there's like a little figure that is standing on the ground with like their phone out taking pictures. And I thought that was really fun because obviously that's what a lot of people were doing. There were so many people just taking pictures to see the colors better. So because I met my goal on Little Gamer and then I met my goal on my WIPCO piece, it meant that I got to move down my list to the next chart, which was Cozy Winter Book Nook, which is a pain-free crafts chart, and it is artwork by Rose Kahn, and my goal is to do 1,000 stitches on it. And I've only done like 600 stitches because I have not stitched very much this past week. I don't know why exactly. I haven't really been doing anything else. I've just kind of been watching a lot of YouTube. I don't know if anyone else is watching the Karen Reed trial, but I have been like obsessed with it because there is a attorney on YouTube that is Emily D. Baker, and she live streams the trial. And so I just like daily will put my little headphone in and just I'm listening to this trial nonstop. Anyways, so cross stitching. I haven't done a ton on this, but here is my 600 stitches on Cozy Winter Book Nook, which I decided I had worked down previously to try and get to the fireplace and do the painting, and I wanted to try and fill in some of this gap just to make sure I hadn't like miscounted anywhere, because if I miscount I would like to catch it sooner instead of later. So I started filling in these colors kind of in like a typewriter method down this side. So I would pick the like topmost empty square on this column, work the color down, possibly park it if it started getting too far away counting wise, and then go back, pick the next color, and then work down. And I'm just trying to connect this space so that it's not just a big gap where I'm not sure if I miscounted. So that's what I've been doing on this, and this is a 25 count 2/1 tent stitch. I will be keeping this chart out to do another 400 stitches on it to meet my goal, and then after I meet the goal on this chart I will get to work on the Haid stitch along, which I am stitching the chart Merry Mushroom Village Picnic number 3, which is artwork by Amy Stewart. So there is everything that I've worked on. I am going to pause real quick to grab my WIPCO piece for the weekend because I forgot that I needed to grab that, so I'll be right back. We are already at weekend 4 for the month, which means that I have already worked on 3 WIPCO pieces. One of them I did not meet the goal on, and that was Strawberry Farm, which is from Flossie Fox Shop. And so here is where I got on this chart. I think I only did like 500 or 600 stitches on it when I started it, and so I need to do another like 400 or 500 stitches to meet my WIPCO goal on this piece. I probably didn't meet the goal too because I think this is one of the few WIPCO pieces that is full cross. So I am stitching this full cross. Most of my other pieces are half cross, so they go a lot quicker than this. So that could be one of the reasons why I didn't meet my goal, is that it's full cross, so it takes a little bit longer. But I am excited to work on this. I do love the fabric. It's the DMC printed Aida that you can get at like Michael's and Joann's and other places like that. So I will be working on that this weekend, and I'm not going to make any other huge weekend plans because I feel like I never end up stitching that much on weekends anymore. Plus, it's another 3-day weekend because there's no school Monday for Memorial Day. So that is all my cross stitching that I've done. I will briefly show my one purchase. Is this, I actually purchased it like 2 weeks ago, but 123 Stitch was out of it. I was ordering floss because I needed more 154 for Autumn Harmony, and I didn't want to order just floss, and so I found a chart and I ended up getting Hobbit House, which is from Cottage Garden Samplings. It's not a chart that I would typically pick. Like, I don't think I've ever purchased a Cottage Garden Samplings chart before, but Hobbit House, I had to get a Hobbit House. Like, it's just so cute and there's so much glare even though I took it out of the package. So there we go. I saw someone was stitching it in a video and it looks so pretty. I do think that I'm most likely going to change the suggested fabric because I don't know what's the suggested fabric. Prehistoric Linen by Fox and Rabbit, and it's a nice fabric, but I don't usually stitch on like, I can't tell, this is like a gray beigey. I was thinking I would like to try and put it on something that's like somewhat brighter, like some sort of a green or a blue or something colorful, just because I do tend to like more colorful things, and this is a very like neutral chart in general. But yeah, I got this. I loved it. Hobbit House, and it's nice and small, so I can actually get it finished, which is always nice to have something that you can actually finish in your lifetime. The only downside though is that it is a paper chart, so that kind of is, you know, not fun not being able to use Pattern Keeper. I do tend to like prefer buying charts that you can get a PDF. So like Mirabilia's, I like a lot of Mirabilia's, but I have stitched one, and after stitching the one, I was like, I hate stitching on paper charts for things like that. If I could get a PDF, I think I would be stitching a lot more Mirabilia's, but that doesn't exist. And yes, you can put them into Markup RXP yourself, but it also takes time and can be like finicky and stuff. So, but yeah, that is a separate rant. So knitting, I managed to finish my socks. They are here. So I had finished this one like a couple weeks ago, and then I started my second one, and then I decided to start making socks for my daughter, and so I got sidetracked from my socks and made one sock for my daughter, and then was like, oh, I should finish mine, and then I went back and made my second sock. So I just finished it last night. I've already worn them last night, and it was like, I thought it was funny is yesterday my kids were out playing outside and I was knitting, finishing my sock, and then I finished my sock and then was like, oh, I need to come and get them, but I put my socks on before I went outside. I put my socks on, go outside to get them, and then my daughter's like, Mom, you finished your socks. And like she just noticed like right away, which I just thought was kind of funny and cute. And so now I need to make her other socks. So that is what I'll be knitting, is my daughter's second sock, which I have already started, but I'm on the ribbing. I don't like ribbing generally. It's like slow. I am not very quick at it. And so yeah, but I did finish a pair of socks and now I am obsessed. The pattern I used was the vanilla sock using DPNs from Crazy Sock Lady, and you can find her videos on YouTube, and she also has a written out pattern on Ravelry. So it was a great pattern. I loved it, and I just want to make more socks. I already have plans to make another pair of socks, but that will be after I finish my daughter's. So I need to cool it on starting new knitting patterns when I haven't finished the ones that I have already done. That takes us now to gridding. So I had a question, and I've had questions before about what I use when I use pens to grid my fabric, and then I had a question from, I think it was Linda in my previous video, and they had asked a couple of things. So one of the things they asked was if I have ever been able to see the lines after I have completed my projects, and about what I use to grid the fabric. So I'm going to start off first with if I am gridding the fabric myself, the pen that I use. There are two different types of pens. They are both by Dritz, and they are Mark B. Gone pens. The reason I have two different ones is because they have different tips. So this one here is a fatter tip. I use this if I'm gridding like an 18 count because it's thicker, and so it's fine for this, but it is too thick for gridding like 28 count fabrics. So if I am gridding a 28 count fabric, I have this one here, which is a, there we go, fine point Mark B. Gone pen. And the tip on this one is a lot sharper. So I like this a lot for gridding like a 28 count, 25 count. I think I even used this to grid the 36 count fabric when I was stitching Rainbow Basin on 36 count, which I quit that. I'm not doing that anymore. But yeah, this pen is great for gridding when you need like a finer line. I do like this one though for the 18 count. It's great for that. It is thicker, but I feel like this one writes better. Like the ink shows up better. This one's kind of like a fainter line in my opinion. But yeah, both of these you can find on Amazon. I think they're both on 123 Stitch, even though I've never ordered them from there before. And you can also find them in like Joann's, but I think they're normally in like the sewing area where they have like the notions and all that stuff. I don't know if they're by the cross stitching area, and I have not been to Joann's in years, so I cannot tell you exactly where they would be, but the first time I ever found them, they were in the notions like sewing area. So these are what I use. I will also link to a video. I think Stitching Jewels has a video on how to grid fabrics using the pens, and so I will have that video linked in the description box, and possibly if I can get it up here, I will have it linked in the corner. I would recommend not to use the friction pens because I think that it's actually been like a statement from the company that I saw like on Facebook or something where they recommended not to use them on fabrics and things where you'd want them to come out because they will come back. I think it's cold will make them show up again, but I have not had any problem with these pens. I was also going to mention that there is a really good video from Sarithri on YouTube. It just came out recently and it was about gridded fabrics, and they actually do a demonstration where they have fabric that they gridded years ago. Like I think one of them was like 18 years ago, and they do like a test to see will the ink come out after an extended period of time. So that is a good video. I will have that one linked down below. And then they also did like a test where they gridded some fabric and then they ironed it to see like if ironing the fabric will impact will the ink come out or not. So that was a good video. I will have those linked down below. And then I was also going to show real quick a couple of my projects that I have gridded, and I have not had an issue with the lines showing through after washing it. The first project that I will show that I removed grid lines from, and you cannot see the grid lines, is the toy box, which is artwork by Donna Gelsinger. It's charted by Heaven and Earth Designs, and I think I finished this chart in like 2019. I'm pretty sure that I started it in like 2013, and I started gridding it when I started it. So it had grid lines on it for a good, you know, like what, 6 years. So here is what it looks like with the lines removed. I have not framed this. It's just been in like my bag of finished things, but I will insert pictures too of what it looked like before I washed out the lines, and you cannot see the lines anymore anywhere. I will say there's an area where there's not lines, but this is something where like if we had like a video of like things that you learned over the course of stitching, one of the things that I would say is do not put dark threads behind your light stitching. That is a terrible idea. I don't know if you can see, but I can see that there is like threads dark behind this. I'll show the back. So on the back you can see that I ended some threads, I think, underneath the light stitches, and I think you can see those through. It kind of bugs me, so I really need to try and like pull those out somehow. But yeah, if we had a video, like I said, of like things I've learned, that would be one thing. Be very careful when you're ending threads not to end them under light stitches because you might see them through. Other things I could say that I've learned from this piece, this is just totally derailing from gridding, is definitely do not use masking tape. It leaves this crusty, dusty line, which this, like I said, I stitched this, I started it in 2013. I did not know a lot back then. I am still happy with the piece, but I have learned a lot to where I would do things a little different now. This is the first piece that I ever did tent stitching. It's the first piece that I ever used 28 count on. The 28 count that I used was a terrible 28 count. Like it was something, I think it was like a Joann fabric, so it was very cheap, but you can kind of see at the top that there's like a huge inconsistency in the fabric. Like, I don't know how well you can tell, but yeah. The fabric wasn't super even, I don't think, and so yeah, there's issues with this. I do love the chart. I love the fact that I finished it. It was my first like super big finish that I ever did, and yeah, the big thing though, the grid lines are gone. I don't see the grid lines, so that was a success. But yeah, there were some things that I could work on after I stitched this piece, but overall I am very happy with this chart. But yeah, so this is this one, and like I said, I don't see any of the grid lines, so to me, at least the gridding on it worked out in my favor, and you can't see it. So that is one of my charts that I've gridded and removed areas of the lines. The next one I'm going to show is actually Autumn Harmony, because I am gridding that one with the pen here. And I was going to show her face, and so when I finished her face, you could actually see the grid lines through the stitching because her face is stitched in a lot of light colors, and so the grid lines were showing through. And so after I finished her face, I actually took just like a small amount of water and wet the area to remove the lines because I didn't want to keep seeing the lines. It looked not... She didn't look as good with the lines showing through. So I actually removed the lines that were underneath her face already, and I'll insert the picture before and here's her afterwards, and you can see that the lines came out. I didn't even have to like fully submerge the piece. I just kind of took like a damp towel and kind of just wet the area because I didn't want to remove all the lines, which is kind of why you can see there's some areas where the lines are kind of smudged because the water kind of did spread a little bit. But yeah, you don't even have to fully submerge it and you can get rid of the lines, and I haven't had an issue with them coming back. So like this piece was finished in 2019. The lines haven't come back since then. And then this one, like I said, the lines came out and I can't see anything underneath her face anymore. In terms of like the pre-gridded fabrics, like the Zweigart one, is I have actually only finished one piece on this type of fabric and it's already framed, so I can't actually show you what it looks like, but I did show it in a previous video, and then I'll insert a screenshot of that. So I'll insert what it looked like before I washed out the grids, and then I'll insert what it looks like with the grids washed out. You mostly cannot see the grid lines anymore. So if I held it up to the light at a weird angle, I would still kind of be able to see where the grid line was. And so I will say that I don't know if I would really want to stitch a chart that wasn't full coverage on the gridded fabric, just because I would be kind of worried if the lines, like, you could still kind of see them. Like if you were doing like a long dog sampler, I don't know if you would still be able to see the lines using the gridded fabric when it washed out. And I think my sister had a similar issue where the lines on the Zweigart fabric, they mostly faded, but you could still kind of see that there was like a little something different. And so that's what I will say about that fabric. And you also have to wash the Zweigart fabric at a really hot temperature. Like someone actually, because I wasn't using fully boiling water, I was just heating up water like in the microwave, and then I would pour the water into like the container that my fabric was in. And it took a good like 20 or 30 minutes for the lines to fully disappear. Someone else had commented that they just throw it into boiling water and the lines will go away quicker that way. But it just sounds very extreme. Like you have to basically like boil it to get the lines out. Whereas the gridded, the pen, I usually don't even use like warm water. I'll usually just use like a cold-ish water because I worry about if you use like super hot water sometimes about floss bleeding, because I have had bleeding issues happen before. My Pinocchio Disney Dreams kit did bleed a little bit when I did wash it when I was done with it. And I also had a different Haid chart that I had used the pen on and I washed it, and there was a red DMC that bled a little bit. Now whenever I wash any of my finished projects, I always throw in one of those color catchers just in case anything is going to bleed, because I've had DMC bleed. So like I said, I think it just depends on the color. It's always been reds that bleed. Like the Pinocchio one, it was a red, and on the Christmas Presents one, which is a Haid I finished, it was a red that bled. So I'm just always careful about reds. But yeah, so the Zweigart fabric has to be washed at a really hot temperature, and it can take a little bit for the grid lines to disappear. That is all that I have for this video. So I will be going so I can get stitching. I need to start working on my Whip Go piece and hopefully meet that goal this weekend, because it's the last weekend in May. I cannot believe we are almost at June. But I will see you all in my video next week, where I will be showing my progress on this Cozy Winter Book Nook, and then we'll see what I get to work on next on my little checklist of projects. So thanks for watching. Bye!